Hey everybody, it's been kind of a while. It's good to be back with you. And now we're in ordinary time, and in our daily readings, in our first reading, we find ourselves in the middle of the first book of Samuel. And through the story of Saul, the first king of Israel, and David, who is king after Saul. And the kind of how all of that kind of works is an interesting thing because the people wanted a king, so God relented and said, fine, give them a king. And even though he knows this isn't going to be what's good for them. But Saul proves to be a disobedient king to the Lord. He tries to follow directions, but he kind of does things his own way. And so yesterday we see that God says how he's disobedient to the commands of the Lord. Like he wants to go and offer sacrifice for something, but he's not listening to what the Lord is saying to him, really what he's asking of him, and he's disobedient. So now today we have the story of when Samuel is sent to Bethlehem to look at Jesse's sons, the sons of Jesse, and we know that the youngest is David. And Jesse brings all of his sons to this sacrifice that Samuel is doing, and 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 Samuel's like, oh, surely it must be this guy because he's big, he's strong, he's tall, and that's what he thinks the king will look like. What God says is that no, don't. I rejected him as well because you see the appearance, or men see the appearance, but God looks into the heart. What God is looking for is a heart that is humble, that can be obedient to the Lord. And that's what he finds in David. David, the youngest, the small one that was out tending the sheep, who wasn't even worthy to come to the sacrifice according to his father. He was like, oh no, he's not going to choose David. But David is the one that's chosen. And it says the Holy Spirit rushes upon David, and he's filled with grace in the Holy Spirit. I think this is a great message for us when especially we can find ourselves in a couple of places. One is that we want things to go the way we want them to, and we want God rather than doing his will. Really, we kind of start to do our own will, or we start to try to tell God how he's going to do his will. Like, this is what would be best, God. Do it. Let's do it this way. And we can become like Saul, who we're really not being a good leader for God's people because we're really just trying to do our own will while masquerading saying that it's God's will. The other thing is that he chooses David, the youngest and smallest of Jesse's sons, to be king. And we know that David is the sort of model king until Jesus comes. That David is not really worthy in the eyes of the world to be king, but he is anointed king. And so sometimes we think ourselves unworthy. We think of ourselves too small or not having the right things to really be a person of that can actually follow the Lord, or someone who can be a leader in the ways of faith. Like we tend to think, oh, that's maybe not me, or I don't have that. But God sees our hearts. He knows what we can do. And really, he's chosen all of us. We've all been anointed like David and filled with the Holy Spirit. So don't count yourself out. Don't count yourself out from doing great deeds for the Lord or doing small deeds every day with great love. That's what St. Mother Teresa tells us. And that's what we're called to right now. And as we continue to be faithful in the small things, God prepares us to be more and more faithful in the big ones. Let's ask the Lord today for obedience of heart, that he might see our hearts and see them to be obedient to him, and that we might follow him each and every day of our lives.